Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy to welcome you at another webinar in the series of webinars conducted by Matriz Official. Today, the topic of the webinar is discovering next market winners before the competition. And this webinar will be given by Victor Fay, Trees Master, CEO of Gentrees, probably the biggest trees company in the world with a large history. And Victor has a long track with trees, and he was a direct student of Altshuler and later a close associate of Mr. Altshuler, and conducted more than 2 decades of consulting experience serving the global 1,000 companies. The webinar will last 1 hour. 40 minutes will be dedicated to the talk by Victor, and 20 remaining minutes will be dedicated to questions and answers. You may answer your question during any time of the talk, but not in voice, but by providing it in the chat. I'm sure you all know how to use the Zoom system, so please record your question in the chat, and later in the 20 remaining minutes, we will come back to your question. And Mr. Fay will answer your questions. Okay, Mr. Fay, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see it. Can you?
Yes.
Okay. Let me start with a short story. You're familiar, I'm sure, with a company called Mars. They make various food products such as M&M candies, Twix, Snickers, and other high carb products. They also have a division in England called Mars Group, Mars Drinks. And in the mid-90s, Mars Drinks pioneered the development of single cup coffee brewers. Now they're a commonplace, but back then they were a breakthrough innovation. By the end of the 1990s, single-serve coffee makers made by Mars became popular in offices in Europe and in Japan. And Mars Drinks Flavia coffee brewer had a very good reputation in that market. So the company decided to spread the operations outside Europe, and in particular into the US market. Back then, I forgot to mention that their single cup coffee makers or coffee brewers were intended specifically for office use, not for individual consumption. At any rate, back then, the US coffee consumption scenery was quite simple. Most offices had drip coffee makers. So the question was, what should a US option for this Flavia coffee brewer be like? And what any company does when it tries to identify or attempt a new market, they conduct a market research. So they, Mars, that is, asked their customers. One of the questions which they asked was, would you like your Flavia coffee brewer to make cappuccino drinks? And the answer to that question was a resounding no. Most potential customers said that they wouldn't like their Flavia coffee brewer to make cappuccino drinks. What was the reason? The reason was very simple. How we make a cappuccino drink? First of all, we need to make an espresso drink. Then we have to remove a refrigerated milk from the fridge and add it into some kind of a jar, and then apply to it a pressurized steam in order to froth the milk and heat up the milk a little bit. Then we take up this foam and put it on top of the espresso drink, and the cappuccino drink is made. So in the minds of those potential customers, it was a complex and messy process. First of all, you need to have fresh milk available, and you have to keep it in the fridge. Then when you try to form the milk splashes all around, so there is too much mess, and you have to clean after this mess. So the customer said, no, we don't want a cappuccino drink. Try to remember this story as we go forward with this webinar. What is a market? Whether it's market for product or service or any new technology. A market is a space of unsatisfied customer needs, and any innovation is a specific solution that meets those unsatisfied customer needs. So how we do discover unmet or unsatisfied needs? There are quite a few approaches used by marketing teams, by marketing professionals. They conduct surveys, they organize focus groups, they conduct interviews, they perform observations on how the customers are using a particular product or service. And then all of this, the results of all of this research efforts are combined, and what is emerging is what is usually called the voice of the customer. Now, the problem with the voice of the customer, first of all, the voice of the customer is a great technique because it allows us to identify what is wrong with our existing product or service or process or technology. However, we customers, all of us are customers. We are not very good when at discerning, understanding our needs. We usually don't ask for something we don't know is possible. And we also don't ask for something we believe is impossible. People never asked for laptops. Nobody asked for Wikipedia. Nobody asked for GPS. Nobody asked for so many great innovations, which we take now for granted, but they were either not thought of or were considered impossible. And this is why all the marketing research efforts which were conducted in those specific areas didn't produce the insights which would have led to the conscious development of the major innovations which we now take for granted. The results of our inability to really understand what the customers want leads to major problems with new product introductions. According to many statistics, about 40% of new products flop in the market, and about 90% of all startups, they also fail in the market. And there are many reasons for that, but among the most major reasons, the most prevailing reasons, numerous research have shown time and again that there are two main causes of failure. First of all, it's incorrectly identified needs of potential customers or undiscovered latent needs or needs which have not been articulated by the customers. In trees, when we conduct projects, when we run projects on new product development or on the development of next market offerings, we complement the voice of the customer, which, as I said, is a very useful and very powerful method for identifying what's wrong with already existing products. We complement it with what we call voice of the product. I will explain to you what voice of the product is in a minute. But basically, it's a system of various interconnected trees tools, which are intended to discover potential winning market offerings. So the intersection between the results of the voice of the customer analysis and voice of the product analysis allows us to identify critically unmet needs. In trees, over the past 20 to 15 years, the word need has been gradually replaced with another term, namely main parameters of value. What is a main parameters of value? It's a key attribute, property or functionality of a given product or service, which is presently unmet on the market, and this attribute is critically important to the purchase decision process. So, excuse me, when we complement voice of the customer with voice of the product, we strive to identify a critical MPV or critical main parameter of value. And according to the latest trees developments, innovation is not just a solution which satisfies an unsatisfied need in the market. It's a commercially available, significant improvement along at least one main parameters of value. Any product, any service, any technology has many parameters of value, which can be ease of use, cost, and many others, performance parameters. And some of them are considered by the customers as important, and some others are considered less important, or we can consider them unimportant. So only the parameters of value, or we can call them needs, which are both important and presently unsatisfied by the existing offerings, we call main parameters of value. And these main parameters of value are the focus, or should be the focus, of innovation efforts. Now, some of these parameters of value can be known and clearly expressed, and this is where the competition in the market is taking place. For example, we would like our laptops to run on their batteries as long as possible. So if any laptop manufacturer can offer a laptop which runs on its battery longer than those of the competitors at a comparable price, it would be a potential market winner. Now, there are also MPVs, or main parameters of value, or needs, which are not really articulated in the market or not expressed by the customers. They are also important, but we don't necessarily we don't have any rigorous means to identify them. But once we identify them, we have a chance to offer something which people really would enjoy and will be delighted about. But there is no competition presently in this area. So one of the main goals of so-called main MPV discovery, which is a separate branch of TRIZ activities today, is the identification of latent or unexpressed, unarticulated customer needs. And modern TRIZ has several major tools, all of which are listed in this slide, which are used in concert together in order to identify the MPV, which has not been yet recognized in the market. And once you recognize it, you have a chance to get an unfair competitive advantage. I'm not going to discuss everything in the remaining 30 minutes or so, which I have during this webinar, but I would like to give you a gist, just an idea of one of these tools and its application to the development of some of the products which have become blockbusters in their respective markets. In particular, I would like to talk about a so-called transfer evolution. Those of you who are familiar with TRIZ know what these are, and those of you who are new to TRIZ, you will have a chance to get a basic understanding of what they are and how they can be used. TRIZ is based on the idea that although products, processes, technologies, and services, let's call all of them systems or engineered systems or man-made systems, although all their evolution looks random, we never can anticipate, not never, but in many cases, we can not anticipate the next breakthrough in any given area of technology or market. Despite this seemingly haphazard development, all man-made systems or engineered systems, as we call them in TRIZ, they indeed evolve along universal predictable patterns, or you can imagine them as vectors or vectors of evolution. So if we know these vectors or patterns of evolution, we can position our given product, our given service, our given technology on one or several of these vectors, and these vectors alone or in concert can help us identify the next major breakthrough. There are quite a few trends of evolution of engineered systems available in TRIZ today. They have been discovered after analysis of thousands upon thousands of successful products and processes and services, and again, engineered systems. And one of them is called the trend of transition to super system or to super systems. In the nutshell, the idea is quite simple. Systems, again, products, processes, services, and other man-made systems that perform one main or primary function. In the course of the evolution, they tend to merge with other systems performing different functions, And they create a so-called super system or more complex system, which now performs all the functions which were previously delivered by those individual systems. So if I have system A, which performs function A, main function, system B performing function B, system C performing function C, system D performing function D, in the course of the individual evolutions, they merge together into one super system, which now performs all those 4 functions which used to be performed by individual systems. Just a few obvious examples of super systems of previous individual, or what we call them, monosystems. I don't want to provide too many comments here, but I hope that these examples are obvious. Now, let's see. I would like you to recall that Flavia coffee brewer made by Mars, and the challenge which they had when they decided to extend their operations or offerings to the United States market. It was the end of the 1990s, the beginning of the 2000s, the new millennium. So you see, you're in your office and you want to take a coffee break. So if you want to get a decent cup of coffee, or a cup of a decent coffee, you go to your office kitchen and brew for yourself a cup of regular coffee. But if you want to get an espresso or cappuccino or hot chocolate or something else more fancy, you go down to the corner office. I'm sorry, to coffee shop, most likely Starbucks. Back then, Starbucks was getting increasingly popular in the United States and in North America in general. And you get yourself something different. So I worked with Mars for several years on the development of their coffee brewer. And we realized back then that the main competitor of the Flavia coffee brewer would be not another coffee brewer made by Mars competitors, but it would be most likely the corner Starbucks office. What is a Starbucks coffee shop? Essentially, it's a place, among other things, where you have different machines, different systems, as we will call them, which make different types of drinks. You have a separate espresso machine, you have a cappuccino machine, you have a regular coffee brewer, tea brewer, hot chocolate machine, etc. And each of these products, each of these machines, if you will, makes a dedicated drink. Now, if we think about the transition to super system, then we can say that we would like and we want to compete with Starbucks. It would mean that we would like our single cup coffee brewer Flavia to make all these type of drinks. So we're not talking about a coffee brewer now, we're talking about some kind of a multi-drink maker. And if we can make this, we will satisfy a new MPV, a new need. It will be a coffee shop on your desk. So instead of wasting your time going out of the office to get a nice cup of cappuccino or espresso, you just go to your office kitchen and brew yourself this particular drink. This is exactly what we suggested to the company's management. Of course, it took some convincing to do because, for example, as you remember, the potential customers said no to cappuccino. We faced a major problem here. Theoretically, we can put together all these separate machines under one roof, and in this case, it would be a monstrous contraption. It would be a huge, big machine, very complex, very unreliable, but it would brew different types of drinks, coffees and teas, and hot chocolate maybe. However, in order to prevent overcomplication and low reliability, let alone a high cost, this multi-drink maker should consist just of one subsystem, whatever you call it. It was a broad conflict, and it was resolved in the course of several years by systematically applying various trees conflict resolution tools. Again, those of you who are familiar with trees, there is nothing new. But for those of you who are new to trees, trees has a number of tools which allow us to resolve conflicts or contradictions, if you will, in such a way that we are able to reconcile competing or conflicting or contradictory demands without any trade-offs or compromises. So the result of that development, which started with the realization that we need to make a transition to super system, was a so-called Leviator drink station, which brews for you very decent regular coffee, in my personal opinion, much better quality than Starbucks. Nice espresso, cappuccino, hot tea, hot chocolate, and several years ago, Lavazza, the largest maker of coffee brewing equipment, bought this particular product line from Mars for a nice chunk of dollars. Now, let me give you an example of another trend of evolution, which was also used in the development of another breakthrough product in a totally different area of the market. This particular trend is called the trend of shortening of flow path. Any system, again, any product, any process, any service, any technology can be viewed as a system which handles flows of energy, material, and information. And usually there are several stages of processing the information, materials, energy within the same system. Sometimes the same system processes all of them. And according to this trend, in the course of evolution, systems tend to shorten these flows. So let's say if in the beginning we had 4 stages of conversion of information or energy or materials through the system, then some of the stages disappear and the flow shortens, and it shortens as much as the laws of physics allow. Just to give you a very simple and familiar example, those of you who are at least my age, or maybe a little bit younger, remember that some 20 plus years ago, and not even 15 years ago, many of us, if we wanted to see a movie, we would rent a DVD, and the process of renting DVD and watching it took several steps. We can consider these steps as a process or as a flow. You had to go to the shop which rented the DVDs. In the United States, it was Blockbuster. You would find your video cassette or DVD disc, then you would go back, insert into the DVD or VCR player, then you would watch it, and then you would take it back to the shop. Then next came initially a small, unassuming startup, but now it's a giant in the industry called Netflix. Instead of what they offered, instead of going to the Blockbuster store nearby, you just order a disc, DVD from Netflix. They would mail it to you, you would watch it and mail it back. And so now we have fewer steps. You don't have to drive to the Blockbuster store or back. And today's model with streaming, you don't need to order anything in the mail. You just watch everything on your computer screen or on your TV screen. So what we see in the course of evolution, the watching of videos of films moved from a long process to a shorter process, and now to a very short process. Now let me demonstrate to you how this specific trend of evolution was used in the automotive industry. There was for many years, there was a problem recognized by many automotive manufacturers. Let's say that you're in the shopping mall, you had many purchases, you have many bags in your hands, you exit this shopping mall, and imagine that you have some kids around, your own kids, and it's raining, maybe snowing, so you have to approach your car, your SUV, for example. Then you put everything on the ground, all these bags, you fetch your key from your purse or your pocket, push the button, the rear door or lift gate, as they call it in the industry, opens up, and you put everything in the trunk. In the around 2010, 2009, Ford came up with a breakthrough solution. Now, you didn't have to push the button, you just approach the car, lift your leg, wave with your foot under the bumper, and the door would open. And this solution caught fire. Many competitors of Ford started mimicking it, started replicating it, but they couldn't just copy paste it. So they made some minor modifications, primarily in the area of robustness. For example, if your bumper is covered with snow or dirt, how make the system work, how the sensors which detect the presence of your foot under the bumper can be made more robust, how to reduce cost, one sensor or more than one sensors, types of sensors, all these kind of minor improvements have been implemented by many of Ford's competitors. And Hyundai, one of the major corporate users of trees, wanted to use trees to identify the next generation rear door opening solution, which would beat not only Ford but all its major competitors. And just to give you an idea, the market for this type of solutions has steadily grown by 5% annually, and this year it's expected to reach $1.5 billion. Now, when I was part of that effort, and when we analyzed the market research conducted by Hyundai people, they identified MPVs, or main parameters of value, by asking their customers, and the customers and suppliers, and they identified three areas of potential improvement. Again, in our lingo, we call them MPVs. It was cost reduction, which is a kind of a default requirement, increased sensor robustness, and they also identified in other potential need. Not all people can perform these acrobatics, especially people with impaired balance. They cannot really balance on one leg while waving the other foot under the bumper. Now, we conducted an exhaustive trees analysis of the existing solutions, and one of the trends of evolution which we used was the trend of shortening of energy flow path, because we can consider the interaction between the person who is trying to open up the rear door as a process or as a flow. So in the old system, the flow or the process took quite a few steps. You have to approach the car, then you have to stop by the rear door, put bags on the ground, open the purse or reach into your pocket, find the key, retrieve the key, push the button, and then the door opens up. Then came up the fourth solution, where you didn't have to do many of the intermediate steps. You just have to approach the car, stop, and put your foot under the bumper, wave with your foot under the bumper, and the door would lift up. So what we see here from the evolutionary standpoint, we see that the flow of these actions, or the process, if you will, has gotten shorter. So obviously, the next step would be eliminating all the particular, all the intermediary steps. You just approach the car, and the door opens up on its own. Again, this was compared with what the previous market research said: reduce the cost, increase the sensor robustness, and try to take care of the people who have impaired balance, so cannot do these acrobatics. When we formulated the problem like that, you approach the car and the door lifts up, we simultaneously identified the new main parameters of value, which the people at Hyundai called hassle-free door opening, or you can say hassle-free means the door opens on its own, like the cave in the tale of Ali Baba and his 40 bandits. The problem, once we formulated this goal, this MPV, the solution became more or less obvious. And it was implemented in the Hyundai's smart lift gate solution. Today, if you approach some of Hyundai's cars or Hyundai's or Kia cars, you don't have to wave your hand, your foot under the bumper. The car senses the key in your pocket or wherever it is. It gives you a audible a warning that it's going to open up, and it opens up. Now, besides the application of this technique, methodology of voice of the product, in those examples which I just mentioned, the same approach has been used in many other products which are widely popular in the market, but you may have not known that Procter & Gamble came up with their major product offering, teeth whitening crazed white strips, which makes them billions of dollars on an annual basis. It was used in the development of a new type of so-called single banana products. Chiquita Bananas used trees for that. Wrigley, now part of Mars, used the same approach for developing longer lasting gums. Yesterday, I watched a movie late in the evening where one of the characters used nasal strips by to prevent his snoring in the night, and he applied the nasal strips which were developed by the application of trees. So let me draw some conclusions. Trees can help you identify hidden or latent unsatisfied needs which your competition hasn't recognized yet. And once you identify those needs, you can use your own expertise, or can use trees to assist you with the rapid development of next breakthrough offerings. And again, trees also allows you, we didn't discuss it, but allows you to develop compromise-free solutions that provide the best of both worlds, high and new functionality and low cost. Now, if you want to learn more about MPV discovery, about the application of trees for the development of new products, or sometimes identifying totally new markets for existing products or services, I highly recommend you to attend the Trees Conference, International Trees Conference, which is going to take place in a beautiful Austrian city of Graz, specifically at Graz University of Technology. It will be held at the conference that is on August 30th through September 2nd, and you can find all the information about this conference on Matrice official website, matriceofficial.net. Now, I conclude my presentation. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Okay, Victor, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have 20 minutes for questions and answers. Please use your microphone or a chat system of Zoom to ask your questions. Maybe I will start with the first question. The idea of MPV sounds quite interesting. The question is, what could be an MPV of a bicycle? Because we are talking about a latent, hidden need, and a bicycle is probably the most innovating system in the world. I mean, during 100 years, there are maybe dozens of thousands of patents on innovative improvement of bicycle. Have you ever thought what could be a new MPV for a bicycle?
Frankly, I have never thought about the bicycle in particular, but I know how to bike, but I am not a big fan of that for whatever reason. There are different bicycles and different markets in which bicycles operate, and so there are different MPVs. There are bicycles which people use just for recreational activities. They just want to flex their muscles, and they just slowly pedaling along some dedicated strip on the road or in some park. So the MPV would be, first of all, there would be different PVs, as I can imagine. It would be safety, comfort, especially in the area where your sensitive parts of body meet the saddle, the seat. convenience of another MPV would be convenience of storage and convenience of transportation, etc. If we're talking about bikes which are used in competitions, I would guess MPVs would be, some of them would be similar, but there will be some other MPVs which somehow are manifested in the speed of the bike, which the bike can attain when it's pedaled energetically, and its aerodynamic properties or resistance rather, and some others. So depending on the specific market or specific primary function or main function this particular bike delivers, some MPVs will be different, while some others can be the same.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. I'm asking because the most of innovations which were recently published about the bicycle, they belong to red ocean. But I'm very curious, could there be any blue ocean for a bicycle? Okay, thank you. It's just a comment. There is a question from Enhu. Thank you for a great sharing. Can you briefly describe the opportunity index as a tool to discover MPV? Thank you, Enhu.
Okay, thank you for your question. The opportunity index is a tool in modern trees which allows us to select the most promising MPVs, if you will. Any product, any service, any process has many MPVs, many main parameters of value. And some of them can be more, how should I put it, more burning, if you will, or have high potential than others. Let's say that for any given product, the same bicycle which Valerie brought up, we identified 4 or 5 MPVs. Unless we have an unlimited budget for R&D and product development, we cannot really identify, we cannot really start the R&D and product development effort along all those MPVs. We have to select those MPVs. We have to somehow select the MPVs which are the most promising. So the opportunity index is essentially a very simple numerical index which allows us, or it's a procedure which allows us to identify MPVs which are not only important, but MPVs which are most dissatisfied in the market. So you want to concentrate on the MPV which is important and which is dissatisfied in the market. And you may have several of those, but if you combine the importance with the level of dissatisfaction, the higher the importance and the higher the level of dissatisfaction with the present offering, that MPV, which combines both, would be the best candidate to concentrate during at least the short-term period. Ideally, all MPVs have to be fully met, fully satisfied. But you have to make a business decision which MPVs you have to concentrate first and which MPVs can still wait in the wings. And this process of identifying this opportunity index allows you to select those MPVs which feature higher importance and at the same time the highest level of dissatisfaction with existing offerings.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question comes from Lixin Wang. Are there any difference between conflict and contradiction in trees?
Yes and no. A conflict usually is a situation when you have two competing requirements which are imposed on different parts of the same system, whether the system is a product, again, a process. For example, can you hear me?
No. Now I can hear you, but there was some disappearance of sound.
Oh, okay.
Now it's okay.
So let me be. I don't want to go into details. A conflict or contradictions, they are interchangeable. In many cases, interchangeable terms or notions, if you will, in trees. Sometimes we call a situation when we have a contradictory demands imposed on two different parts of the system. We call them engineering contradictions. Sometimes we call them system conflict. Sometimes we call them technical contradiction. And there is a separate notion which is called a physical contradiction. So for the purpose of this very general presentation, I use both terms, conflict or contradiction, but in trees, some of them are interchangeable, some of them are not. But again, in this presentation, a conflict or contradiction can be viewed as synonyms.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, any more questions? Please, we still have some minutes left. Okay, question is from Anhu. Most trees tools developed so far have considered function and cost factors. Are there tools that consider the harm factor? Thanks, Anhu.
Valerie, can you please repeat the question?
Most trees tools developed so far have considered function and cost factors. But are there any tools that consider the harm factor?
Thank you for your question. Yes, of course. First of all, most trees tools it's not really true that all trees developments so far have been along the lines of functions and cost. But it's a separate discussion. What is harm? Harm is also can be considered as a function. In trees, we differentiate two types of functions, so-called useful functions and harmful functions, or you can call them wanted or unwanted, desirable or undesirable. We call them useful and harmful. Harmful function, a useful function is a function which you would like to keep, retain in your system, or even improve it, while a harmful function is any function which you don't like, which you would like to get rid of, or at least diminish as much as possible. So, for example, in that case study with the rear door opening by Hyundai and Ford, the need for you to stand on one leg while waving your foot under the bumper can be modeled using a functional modeling approach as a harmful function, or at least maybe more than one harmful function. So in this case, you have a conflict between the need to detect your food, and which is a useful thing, or useful function, if you will, and the need another need to balance, to stand on one leg, or balance one foot under the sensor, which would be a harmful function.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, any more questions? Okay, since there are no more questions, we are almost approaching the end of our webinar. So I would like to thank you, Victor, for a very interesting and insightful presentation. And there is a question, there is one more question. Thank you very much for presentation from Valeria Dubnuk. Could you share, please, some sources where I could read more about MPV?
Yes, there are some articles on MPV discovery. There are some conference proceedings where MPV discovery has been discussed. Valerie, what we can do maybe, when you post the recording of this video on YouTube, maybe we can provide a comment,
some references.
References.
Yeah, okay. Sure, we can. And we also can include them to the distribution email with a link to this presentation.
Right.
Okay. Another question. How can you leverage the business model canvas value proposition to select the PV?
Thank you for your question. Yes, Canvas, the Canvas approach is often used in conjunction with other tools of MPV discovery for the identification of various stakeholders which have their stakes in the production or delivery or the use of a particular product or service. And what we do for each of these stakeholders on the canvas, they have their own MPVs, and the most interesting case happens when MPVs of different stakeholders are in conflict or contradiction with each other. In trees, when we have a conflict or contradiction, it's where we find the best opportunity for innovation. So the canvassing technique allows us to identify different MPVs associated with different stakeholders, and identify those MPVs which are in conflict. And by identifying those conflicting MPVs, we can concentrate on those and resolve the conflicts and develop solutions which satisfy all stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, the time is over. So I would like to close this session, and please follow up for our next webinars. And Victor, thank you very much for a very insightful presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Valerie, for orchestrating this and for hosting it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.